Welcome to Organic Week. We're so pleased that you are joining us for an Organic Week webinar to learn more about the importance of organic food. We welcome today Alexander Arthur. He is a graduate of the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, and he is a registered holistic nutritionist. He'll be talking to us today about why choose organic to impact your health and well-being. And with his deep awareness through his kinesiology and environmental studies, Alexander has a tremendous perspective to offer. He is a professor of these subjects, and so he'll be able to offer us a lot of insight. So today you can expect in this webinar to explore the importance of how your food choices are impacting the environment and why we should be choosing organic. There'll be a brief overview of the benefits provided by biodiversity, the microbiome in the soil and our body, and so on and so forth. So we're so pleased to have you here today, Alexander. And what makes this possible today is our sponsors. So we're so pleased that through the Canada Organic Trade Association, the Choose Canada Organic process that we do, we have tremendous partnerships in the industry, which allow us to actually deliver the webinars, deliver the programming. So you can see a special shout out to UNFI, who is also the overseer of the Savor brand, Yorkshire Valley Farms, ProCert, InnoFoods, and La Cetra of particular note. So I just wanted to give a very sincere thanks to our sponsors. And before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that the Canada Organic Trade Association acknowledges that our offices, which are located in Ottawa, are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence reaches back to time immemorial. So welcome, and Alexander, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's a true pleasure to be here. It's such a good cause and a great week to celebrate organic food. And I'm really excited for this presentation, and I can get shared right away.
Yes, please.
Shared here. All right, so we've got it shared here. Now, usually I do, live classes, so we're missing a little bit of the interaction, but we'll have the questions available at the end, and hopefully if you email in, we'll be able to answer any questions. Really, really excited to talk to you, everybody watching here across Canada, wherever you're watching from, on the impact on organic food to our health and well-being. As a kinesiology graduate and a registered holistic nutritionist with the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, I really, really believe strongly, this is one of my missions in life, is to help both the health of the human being and the human body and the health of the planet. And I also graduated with environmental studies degree, so looking at the aspects of how human economy and actions and the human industry affects the environment and what we can do to change it. So really passionate about all of these subjects, and in combination, they really all point to one thing, which is really the food production systems. If we have proper food production and we're eating the proper organic foods, then everything, both the human body and the human environment, will thrive. So that's what the presentation is about today. So really excited. I've got my next slide here just to tell you a little bit more about the brief overview. So again, we're going to be looking at a little bit of biodiversity, talking about something that's very, very up and coming in the last 5 to 10 years, microbiome, both in ourselves and humans and in the soil, and how food choice equals power, our power to influence change. And that it comes from our own personal choice in the capitalist economy. So that's very exciting. We'll talk about things that we can do to further our own health, to further change in the industries, in the food industries and in the health industries. And we're going to talk about organic food, physical health and well-being, and talk a little bit about seasonal eating and some practical tips, again, on how to take action. So this is what really inspired me. I was just in kinesiology in university, and I love sports and I loved health. I came upon a subject which was all about waste management, and something clicked inside of me that was immediately showed me that this was the challenge I wanted to take on, the challenge of climate change, of sustainability, keeping our world healthy for generations to come. That's something that resonated inside of me. And in that instant, I knew this was the challenge I wanted to take on, one of the life missions I wanted to do. So the biggest challenge that we have in this generation, the next 10 years, especially with the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, they said that the next 10 years are going to be the most important, possibly in human history, for deciding whether we can stay and thrive on this human planet, on this earth that we call home. So this is something that's both exciting and can be quite daunting. We're seeing more and more news of climate change all the way, loss of biodiversity, loss of fresh water. And then on the other side here too, within the last 30 years especially, we've seen an increase in obesity. We've seen an increase in allergies. I run also a children's camp and programs, and we do a lot of children's education, and we see a huge increase in allergies, especially over the last 20, 30 years in society, especially in kids. So we're going to talk a little bit about allergies, and maybe that's a proponent of the conventional food system. And we're going to talk about preventable diseases and conditions, which is, again, a huge marker that's on the rise. And both of these things, the environmental impact and human health, both rising similarly. And we're going to look at the relationship between those two. And again, that's what I'm always fascinated about, is human health and the health of the environment, and how do they coincide, and how do we get both to be thriving. All right, so looking at these, this is something that this is actually taken from a very, very good book and Netflix series, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about as well too. It talks about the 9 boundaries of the planet. So we've got climate change here, and we've got biodiversity loss, which is already alarming, and we've got the nitrogen cycle, which is already crossing the threshold as well too. So these biosphere boundaries really give us, now within the last 5 years, when they've got the breaking boundaries studies coming out, we've got to see, okay, what are actually the biosphere metrics that we have in the planet, that if we go past them, we could actually have irreversible change, right? So something that we're really talking about a lot is climate change. Something that's not yet quantified is chemical pollution, and the non-organic substances that we're going to talk about add to the chemical pollution. Nitrogen cycle, which is part of the artificial fertilizers used in conventional agriculture, really starts tipping this nitrogen, which is an essential part of the cycles of the planet. Excess nitrogen from artificial fertilizers containing nitrogen upsets the balance, and we're already pushing past the threshold on that one. And biodiversity loss, of course, with conventional agriculture and with the onset of feeding a greater population, we have more biodiversity loss through the things we're doing, including some of the things we're going to talk about, such as pesticides, fertilizers altering natural environments. So that's one side of things. This is the planet side of things, the planet challenge, planetary challenge, climate challenge. The other challenge we've got coming through is the challenge of the burden of diseases. And these are diseases that have been shown to be preventable through our own choices and actions, and what we eat and how we exercise. Of course, that's my kinesiology background, and my nutritionist background is going to be talking about what we're eating, obviously. So cardiovascular diseases, cancer, those two have already been shown to be able to be altered by what we eat and by how we operate in life, how we exercise, and the environment that we put our body through, including our exposure to things like pesticides, things like chemicals that are being added in, or maybe not even having enough nutrients on the opposite side of things, not having enough nutrients in the food. So a lot of challenges that we're seeing. The good thing is something always positive to remember. I'm a positive realist, so always like to understand what is the reality, what are the challenges, but also have a optimistic look at we've got a lot of progress going on. Look at this, we're doing organic week. This is a very, very good sign of progress to come. So there's a lot of good change happening. The challenge is in one generation, everything is caught up from a climate change perspective. We have new understanding, and now the challenge is going to be acting on this understanding and acting on this challenge, which is both exciting. I think it's exciting for a generation to be able to step up and be looked at in history as the generation that made the changes necessary for all the future generations to thrive. So I think that's an exciting challenge that we can look at and frame it in a positive way that gives us potential to act upon. So we're going to bring it back again to food choice equals power. The choice of food has the single greatest powerful effect, not only on human health, but the health of the planet's biodiversity, freshwater, desertification, nitrogen cycle, and climate change. Now, organic food. This is what we're here to talk about, organic food, the link between organic food and our physical health and well-being. Now, we're going to go through a few major distinctions of organic. This I got from the Organic Week website itself. I thought it was a really great infographic, and I thought I would promote the Organic Week website because I thought it was very well done. So these are 5 primary reasons to choose organic food. And I'll describe a little bit here and a little bit more in detail as we go. So organic food helps you avoid pesticide exposure. Number one, that's something I think is the most known about organic food. Obviously, the non-use of pesticides and inorganic chemicals and inorganic fertilizers in adding into that, right? So avoiding pesticides is number one. Obviously, pesticides in the body alter the microbiome and cause many different issues. We're going to talk about pesticides a little bit further, but that single choice helps you avoid something that's inorganic, something that's harmful to the body, proven to be harmful to both the body and biodiversity. So you're instantly, just with removing pesticides from the process of making food, we are avoiding huge impact on our body and huge impact on the environment with just number one, just the first thing we started with, right? Organic keeps genetically engineered organisms out of your food. GMOs are altered foods, so actually altered within the actual organism itself to have different properties than were done in nature. So these are foods that are altered in the lab to have different properties. So there's long-term studies in effect right now. In different parts of the world, these are banned already. In North America, they're not banned. So the only way that we can guarantee that we're not eating GMO foods, which can have very long-term consequences, a lot of which we are still discovering, and many which are actually paired up just to be more pesticide resistant to a pesticide. Those are in foods in North America, unfortunately. And one way to avoid eating these made in lab foods and vegetables and fruits is to choose organic, because if you choose organic, they are non-GMO, they're non-genetically engineered or genetically modified. That's what GMO stands for, genetically modified organism. So you're not having a GMO. So another positive benefit right into that. Organic supports a healthier farm lifestyle and community. So one of the biggest proponents, when you don't have pesticides, you're automatically getting healthier. if you don't have inorganic fertilizers, you're already having less of an impact on the soil. You're allowing the soil and the microbiosphere under the soil to thrive, and you're providing a healthier workspace for farmers, right? And for anybody, farmhands, any laborers, anybody involved in the whole farming process, you are providing a better experience for them. Often when they're not having to buy inorganic fertilizers or pesticides, there's economic benefits for organic farmers as well. So right away, we're looking at even the third aspect, not only the environment, not only the health of individuals, but now we're looking at within the capitalist structure of our society, we're looking at greater economy, greater workplace safety, and also we've got, again, workplace health, family health on the farm as well too. Organic mitigates climate change. We're going to talk about this a lot as well. Not only does removing forests for farming and greater areas and loss of biodiversity obviously contributing to climate change, the single greatest factor is when you lose health of soil, you lose its ability to sequester carbon inside the soil. Carbon dioxide is one of the most potent greenhouse gases. It's very prevalent in our society. We talk about CO2 a lot, CO2 emissions. It's very much in the climate change news all the time. What we don't realize, and we talk about trees as a great carbon sequestering potency, right? But we don't talk about soil, and soil has a lot of CO2 sequestering property if it's healthy, if it's organically stable, and if it has a thriving ecosystem that's not disturbed by pesticides and not disturbed by inorganic fertilizers as well too. So looking at the health of the soil as a huge focus for both the nutrition of food and climate change itself. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And of course, biodiversity, pesticides and inorganic fertilizers contribute in a huge way to the loss of biodiversity. We are now understanding on a higher level that all ecosystems are like our bodies. We're not A plus B equals C. We're actually a very diverse, interconnected system, and so is the environment. And really, the more we understand the system, the more we can understand that little changes to the system, just like a drug has side effects, any addition that's inorganic, not meant to be in nature, any addition to that biosphere or to the ecosystem creates great change. And it could wipe out entire species, which we are seeing across the planet. And each species has an actual contribution, big or small, to that environment. And if you remove them, you actually start removing very vital cogs of the ecosystem, causing many knock-on effects. So biodiversity helps the earth become very resilient, very working properly within the sphere, and it helps us. Again, we're looking at pollinators. If we're losing biodiversity of pollinators, we're losing our ability to create more crops and have our crops thrive, right? So organic, the other thing that we're looking at with organic is that farmland is used to grow the food was not treated with synthetic fertilizers again, but for 3 years prior to harvest. So we're going to look at the Canadian organic standards a little bit here, and we are just kind of repeating, and I'm going to go through what we're looking at in terms of labels in just a second, because we're starting to think about food choice as well too. So farmland used to grow the food was not treated with synthetic fertilizers for 3 years prior to harvest, and synthetic fertilizers are a big reason why the soil ecosystem is disturbed and biodiversity is disturbed. The crop was not irradiated, grown from GMO seeds, or fertilized with sewage sludge. So these are things that happen in conventional agriculture that are not happening with organic. And organic meat was not raised with hormones or dosed with antibiotics. So this is straight from the organic standards, and I'm going to show you where you can find the organic standards because it's fully available. And I show the class all the time in our holistic nutrition class. I show them all the time. And we go through it because it's very, very easy to review, and it's very actually accessible from just a layperson. You don't need to have any sort of qualifications to read it. It's actually pretty easy to read and easy to understand. So what we find with the actual organic labeling, so we're looking at 95% or more, and we're looking at 100% organic. This is something from the organic standards that shows you what you're looking for. From, is it a 70% plus organic? Is it 70 to under 95%? Or is it 95% or more in organic? So in organic properties, I should say organic, just so you don't understand it, inorganic, right? So 95% or more may not contain an ingredient in both its organic and non-organic form, may contain up to 5% non-organic ingredients if organic form is not commercially available, and that's 95%. Just give me a moment here. Just going to just okay, sorry about that. I had to close the window here. So we're going to look at the labels here for organic labels explained. This is what we found from USDA, and there's certain equivalencies between USDA organic and Canadian organic. So organic labels explained, so when you're looking at 100% organic, that's 100% certified organic ingredients and processing. We're looking at no GMOs across the board when it's 100% organic or just organic. Now, we bring this up just so you're aware of the different profiles of your foods that you're choosing, obviously. So when we're looking at 100% organic, you're looking at certification required across the board, non-GMO. So everything we talked about already applying. We're just looking at 100% organic versus the 95% organic ingredients, which we also saw here as well too, up to 5% organic ingredients if the organic form is not commercially available. And then we're looking at different products that may say they have organic ingredients inside. But again, you have to look at the food label itself. You have to be very careful with this. So just going 100% organic, you're going to be guaranteed all of these things. If you're not, if you say you're made with organic, then you've got to see which ingredients are organic and which ingredients are not. The Canadian organic standards, accessible to everyone, as I mentioned. All you have to do is type in the Canadian organic standards into Google, and you can find it here. It's the first link, and it's Canadian Production Systems General Principles and Management Standards. You've got the permitted substances list as well as aquaculture. So you can look through all of those. It's very, very fascinating to read. I won't go through it too much because we don't have that much time, but that's something that you can look into very much. And I would very much recommend it to be even more educated after this as well. So in Canada, organic standards are developed and voted on by farmers and industry representatives through the General Standards Board's Committee on Organic Agriculture, and standards are required to be reviewed every 5 years, enforced by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency through third-party certification bodies. And in the US, organic standards are set and enforced by the federal government through the National Organic Program. So these are different ways that we can look at both the personal and human and health side and environmental. So the cost of eating non-organic foods or conventional foods, this is something that I like to flip, right? So a lot of people say, okay, we can benefit the environment, we can benefit here, but what are the costs? So sometimes when we look at the costs, it's easy to make the positive choice because you're you can see the cost right in front of you, right? Which is something that we talk a lot about in environmental studies. Can we see the cost of everything in front of us, the cost of environmental impact, right? Can we see the cost? Because we can see the cost personally, but can we see that cost? And they're always trying to make a monetary cost now, which is great. But from the personal side, when we destroy soil health, we have less nutrients in our food, and the soil health is destroyed. We're going to look at soil right away after this. When the soil health is destroyed, then we get fewer nutrients. When there's artificial nutrients being pumped into the soil, we get fewer nutrients in the food itself. When we have acidic soil, we actually have more effect again on the actual nutrition of the food. But again, this is actually an environmental one that I've put here. This is releasing CO2 into the air. We do have a personal effect on that, as more of us are going to be affected by climate change. Ingesting pesticides, we've already started to become more aware of the links between pesticides and issues that are affecting our own microbiome. And issues that are affecting our own microbiome affect our immune system at large, right? So we're looking at a lot of connections between allergies, between different disorders that are coming from all of these inorganic substances in the foods. And a lot of the heavily pesticide laden foods are actually the ones that are the most allergen causing. And because of the link of the body identifying that as a foreign substance and linking that with that food, right? And I'm seeing that all the time with the children that are coming in with the common allergies. And those common allergies are foods that are very heavily laden in pesticides commonly. So ingesting hormones and antibiotics, ingesting genetically modified organisms, and again, contributing to allergies and a host of other health issues. From an environmental perspective, we're supporting loss of biodiversity, adding to the destruction of the nutrient cycle in the soil, supporting algal blooms and artificial fertilizer, including nitrogen runoff, supporting chemical application and leakage in the environment, supporting the lowest animal welfare practices, supporting antibiotic use, contributing to potential superbugs. This is another issue with the overuse of antibiotics. We are creating, and pesticides for that instance, we're creating superbugs or super pests that are more and more resistant to these pesticides and to the antibiotics, which become a huge problem for us because they become stronger and stronger, and we have no resistance for them. And anything natural that we do, they're already superbugs, so they're going to be much more of an issue. And we're going to look at the organic way of going against pests. We actually use all organic non-substances. There's different physical ways, different ecosystem ways that we look at within organic farming to just naturally mitigate pests and mitigate bugs. Just as when we are healthier, when we have a healthier microbiome, we have a much more resistant to any pathogens or pathogenic bacteria, pathogenic viruses that could try to infect us and cause us to be sick, right? And again, we're looking at supporting the loss of non-patented heritage seeds and foods through GMOs, GMO seeds, and those seeds and foods that are actually controlled by GMO companies. These are foods that people no longer have access to. In general, they are controlled by companies themselves, patent companies. So again, this is the vicious cycle of pesticides that we're looking at. So they are produced by companies and sold for profits, and they have been linked to different birth defects, IQ, ADHD, autism, looking at the impacts of pesticides on farmers and agricultural workers. We talked about that before. Impact on aquatic organisms. We're losing, of course, fish death, biodiversity loss inside the actual aquatic ecosystems. And then looking at respiratory diseases, leukemia, cancer, poor mental development with high exposure rates to these pesticides. Obviously, if you have a pesticide and we have all of these measurable impacts, and if somebody ingests that in high levels, it causes a whole host of issues that we're seeing here. It is just general common sense, which is not so common, to not have these pesticides on our foods and look for other alternatives. But unfortunately, it's the easy way, the quick way. But unfortunately, we're seeing that not only contaminates soil, not only destroys microorganisms within the soils, but also the very delicate ecosystem around the farms. And organic farming and biodynamic farming, they also look at full ecosystems development. And again, more biodiversity, more health of the ecosystem equals better water, better soil, and better food for everybody. Now, let's look at soil. So soil and humans actually very, very much, we've got a lot of similarities, a lot of reference points here. So not only do we have the same nitrogen to carbon ratio and pH, we have many different aspects of exchanges that are very similar. So the soil has a microbiome and humans have a microbiome. And the microbiome is really the place in humans, it's in the intestine and the digestive system. And we have many microorganisms that actually help us digest our food and provide the nutrients to us. Soil and plants and vegetables and fruits, they have the same thing. They have microbes. They have both mycorrhizal fungi and mycorrhizal bacteria that help get the nutrients from the soil, bring it to the plant, and replenish the nutrients in the soil. So looking at the microbiome, we have a brand new understanding in the last 5 to 10 years, our microbiome and the microbiome of the soil. And when we study the whole person, the whole ecosystem, we look at both the ecosystem and the soil has a microbiome, and both humans have a microbiome. So we're looking at it here. This is a really good picture to kind of link the microbiome together. So our microbiome, you see in our digestive tract and our digestive system here, it has the same underneath the soil. So the soil, the roots are connected to mycorrhizal fungi and mycorrhizal bacteria. So the fungi will go and actually help digest for the plant, bring in the nutrients in hard to reach places in the soil. It'll actually protect the plant from pathogens and pests. And just the way that our microbiome does, when we have a healthy gut microbiome, we have a healthy immune system. And same thing with if the plant has a good microbiome, then actually the soil around it is alive, it's full of nutrients, and the plant has so much more nutrients. So in organic fertilizers or pesticides, they actually kill the microbiome of the plant and has the plant just, it's totally dependent on artificial inputs for all of its nutrients because it doesn't have a microbiome to help it. It's like removing our digestive system and just having nutrients injected into our body. It wouldn't be the same as having our microbiome digest it, deliver nutrients to our body. And that's the proper way that our body is actually designed to take in nutrients. So this is something that I'm very passionate about in the sense of understanding that there's replicated cycles both in ourselves and in the environment. And when we're looking at it, this is a really good sort of snapshot that when we're eating healthy organic food, pesticide free, microbiome rich, we're having salads, fruits, raw vegetables, potentially a low meat count because we're having more foods that feed our microbiome, which are coming from the prebiotic fibers that are in salads, fruits, and raw vegetables, then we're going to be adding to a lot of good health for ourselves, right? And this is the conventional food system, which is also supported by the sort of fast food culture that especially is prevalent in North America, which is typically rich in meat, low in all of these fresh fruit salads. There's pesticides, residues, and then leads to a poor microbiome. And again, looking at the human microbiome, this is something that's very, very prevalent and very, very new within the last 10 to 15 years. We are discovering that there are 10 times as many outside organisms in our microbiome as there are human cells in the human body. And we have 10,000 different microbe species living in the human body. They outnumber our genes from 100 to 1. And we're noticing that many of these species actually affect our health in a massive way. So having a proper microbiome in terms of having the proper positive bacteria inside ourselves and having a good balance, we are actually contributing in huge ways to our immune system, our digestive system, our ability to get good nutrients. And then we're seeing the same thing in plants. So if plants don't have a good microbiome, then they will also not be able to thrive. They'll be more susceptible to pests, more susceptible to disease, and will have less nutrients coming into them. So same thing between the plants and same thing between the humans. And here we're looking at, this is what the mycorrhizal fungi could look like in a snapshot of grass here. And we're looking at mycorrhizae is a term to describe the symbiotic relationship between mycorrhizal fungi and a plant's root system. So we have fungi that go out and they attach themselves to the roots. They bring in all the nutrients, the bacteria, the mycorrhizal bacteria help break down the nutrients and deliver it into the plant. So we're actually seeing that these fungi help trees communicate with each other and deliver nutrients to trees in a forest, and they actually communicate through these mycorrhizal fungi networks, which is very fascinating. They've seen that a mother tree can actually deliver nutrients to its sapling trees, the trees that came from its seeds. Mother trees actually deliver nutrients to these trees and protect them and have signals for pests through this mycorrhizal fungi network. So these mycorrhizal fungi that are present in organic farming and not present in conventional farming with pesticides and inorganic chemicals and fertilizers, they actually help the plants communicate, help them form very strong networks with each other, and even share nutrients amongst each other and have warning signs for pests and help each other have more just internal resistance to all of these things that we're trying to get rid of with the pesticides and with the organic fertilizer, organic substances. Actually, the nutrients are better digested by the actual fungi and bacteria themselves. So hopefully giving a little bit of a snapshot here. I hope I'm doing a good job in terms of giving you a little bit of a snapshot without getting too much in detail, but just looking at the soil micronutrients here. We've got potassium, we've got phosphorus, and we've got nitrogen. And those are the three macronutrients, and they've got micronutrients in the soil the same way that we need macronutrients and we need micronutrients. So the soil and the plants, soil contains macro and micronutrients, not just the ones most prevalent in the fertilizer, which are nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, but also a lot of micronutrients. And these are better absorbed with more mycorrhizal fungi underneath the soil. So really what we're looking at from an organic point of view is we're looking at increased soil organic matter. We're minimalizing tillage. We're looking at soil surface to keep all of these bacteria and fungi healthy. We don't want to expose it to the sun. So that's why we're minimizing tillage, which is the rotation of soil and the disruption of this huge organic community underneath the soil. So that's something that when we're focusing on soil health, we focus on plant health and we focus on human health. So these are all the connections. These are the connections we're looking at between the health of the environment, health of our food systems, and health of the body. And again, if we have malnourishment, if we have soil depletion, we have malnourished plants, malnourished bodies, nutrients. All of these nutrients here, the micro and the macro, they come together to form essential materials in the body or in the plants, hormones, enzymes, proteins. When we're lacking these nutrients, tissue structure weakens, cellular function is impaired, and then health problems develop, right? So what we're seeing is regional differences in vitamin and mineral content in soils, right? The regional differences are because of what's in the soil. So how do we make sure that the soil has the maximum amount of nutrients? We're keeping the ecosystem at its maximum and putting plants and creating ecosystems that allow these soils that we are using to become fertile soils. We are actually ensuring through crop rotation the proper nutrient cycling, right? And we're ensuring healthy soils. If we ensure healthy soils, and that's not through conventional, because conventional with pesticides and organic fertilizers destroying soils, if we destroy soil, we destroy life. So how do we become sustainable? We have to make sure that we keep our soil health at its maximum. And that first step is through organic agriculture. So again, this is straight from the organic standards. So the organic commitment to soil, this is page 16 of the Canadian Organic Standards. The main objective of soil fertility and nutrient management program in organic farming shall be to establish and maintain fertile soil using practices that A, maintain or increase levels of soil organic matter, B, promote an optimum balance and supply of nutrients, and C, stimulate biological activity within the soil. So everything that we've just covered, looking at maximum biological activity and ecosystem underneath the soil and within the soil, and promoting an optimum balance of supply of nutrients. So that's going to vis-a-vis into the plants from the soil. And when we have more soil or organic matter, we have more matter in which to decompose into nutrients and use that to go straight into our vegetables and fruits and provide more nutrients and phytonutrients to our bodies. So soil health, again, is central. Food, crop, farm, and ecosystem health depend on soil health. So we're looking at food quality, nutrition, flavor, aroma, clean, toxin-free, shelf life, increased ecosystem health. We're looking at soil carbon sequestration. So sequester carbon means to remove it from the air and hold it in the soil. So when we do that, we remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, thereby removing the greenhouse gases, causing the greenhouse gas effect to be lessened and causing our polar ice caps to stop melting at the big rate. The polar ice caps are actually the caps that hold or control our actual weather systems. So that's the whole thing with climate change. When we're heating the planet up with more CO2, we are actually then changing ocean currents because we are melting more of the ice caps and changing the ice caps. They were the ones that actually helped our weather to stay in a very, very stable way for humanity to thrive. It was called the Holocene, which is this period of time of the Earth, which allowed humanity to thrive because our weather systems were very, very predictable and very, very stable. Now we are changing the stability, causing weather to be very, very different. Northern Italy, I have family in Northern Italy. They have not had a drop of rain there for the whole growing season, and that has never happened before in 100 years. So we're seeing this across the board. We're seeing this in the Western US and Western Canada, even now as we speak, and we're seeing more and more of this, right? So we're also looking at water quality and retention. When you have healthier soils, they actually retain more water as well. And we're looking at increased biodiversity. Again, we're looking at climate resilience for farm. If your farm is more resilient to climate health, can retain more water, you need to use less water. You have better soils. It's more able to sustain itself. And you also have a farm health, and you don't have people abandoning farms due to their soil being destroyed, or the soil can't retain water, or it has no more nutrients in it. So we're looking at crop health as well too. Again, we've already talked about this, pest and disease resilience, because of its microbiome, just like the human microbiome. If we have better microbiome, we have better disease and pest resistance. And then obviously we're looking at the yield. With better soil, you have better yield. So we're going to just simplify it again. There's two major ways of farming, and we're going to talk about how we can really choose organic properly here. And we can choose to support regenerative practices, organic and biodynamic. We're not going to talk too much about biodynamic right now. We want to focus on organic, and we want to focus on regeneration. Organic is the primary and best way in our food choice right now that we can support the first level of regeneration of our soils, and we can get change right away because we can choose organic right now, which is very, very exciting. So again, talking about improving soil health, healthier crops, higher yields, and going away from industrial agriculture. This is really just, we're looking at soil health, animal wealth, and social fairness. Again, year 1, year 2, year 3, it's a 3-year process. You have to have your soil not touched with inorganic substances for 3 years. Then you can start towards organic. And we have some sponsors for the week, for Organic Week, that actually certify organic. ProCert, we've got Quality Assurance International and EcoCert. These are all amazing companies that help farmers in the process of becoming organic. Some of them do consulting as well to help companies in the process of becoming organic and developing their land and yield to be organic. So really want to shout them out. They're doing great work, and they work with the Canadian government to help certify people with the actual Canadian standards. So farmers would be able to go with them, which is very, very exciting. And these companies are such a essential part of the process and making change happen and helping to continuously make sure that the standards are executed at its number one and top quality excellence in kind of making sure that everything is organic and fully up to the standards. So how do we reverse climate change? We want to sequester carbon dioxide back into the soil. We want to reverse desertification and the death of soil. We want to help with reforestation, deacidifying the oceans. But what we're looking at here is practicing regenerative agriculture and creating a healthy food system. So organic on a budget. So now how do we bring this back? We've just gone into the science, we've gone into the links between humans and the soil. Now, how do we bring it back to, okay, what can I do? So what can we do is we can choose to buy organic food. Organic food, because of it became conventional to just use pesticides and fertilizers. They were subsidized, that food was subsidized. That was cheaper now than actually producing organic. So organic, people say the biggest sort of determinant or resistance is, okay, it's more expensive. I understand that it might be healthier for me, but it's a little bit more expensive. I've been buying organic for many years now, and I can say that through the ways that we've done, it's actually been just the same price or even more. I'm saving as well too. There's a lot of great organic choices now. Two of the ones that are great are the Big Carrot and Goodness Me in the GTA area. I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So these are really great, and they're actually sponsoring Organic Week as well too. They're really great options, but there's organic co-ops as well too that deliver to your door. The Big Carrot, Goodness Me, a lot of these companies have delivery options available as well. It's already cheaper than eating out, and through different ways that you can organize yourself, which I'm going to go over a little bit right now, which was organized by CSNN, the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. Some other tips that you can do, or you can, of course, have a meal plan with a holistic nutritionist. You can follow the plan, just being a little bit more organized. I just create a list. I have my list of things that I actually like to eat and that I know I can cook very quickly. I'll have a list and I'll make that list so I can really just get those meals going very, very quickly. So I don't have to worry about going out or eating out. You can try new items from the bulk section. You can grow your own. This year, I moved into a new house. I was able to grow my own for the first time. So you can grow your own. You can eat seasonally and locally. So local farmers markets are available. I know in Ontario, just 45 minutes to half an hour outside Toronto, you can go to all kinds of great farmers market, but even inside Toronto, I think there's about 15 different farmer market options that you can go to. Again, cooking from scratch, we already talked about. Going a little bit more plant-based. I always recommend to go more plant-based because of the effects on the microbiome. Plants and fruit, they have phytonutrients and they have prebiotics that feed our microbiome. So that actually always is going to be creating more health. We've got to have our protein and the right amount of protein in our diet. There's so many good protein based plant options out there right now as well too. And then looking at the dirty dozen, so trying to remove your exposure to the dirty dozen. If you are looking at something and you want to buy organic, go for the ones that are 100% really pesticide laden if they're non-organic, right? So you can look at that, the dirty dozen, you can look that up. We're not going to go into it right now, but you can look it up and then you can make the most impactful change with the organic that you're looking at. So you're avoiding the most pesticide laden foods as well. So those are a little bit of tips here. I've been ordering and delivering food to my house. There's a lot of nice, great organic options that are popping up, bigger stores as well too, and great local stores again. So it's a very exciting time because there's a lot of options available to us. So again, when we send market signals, it's going to drive down costs. So we're already seeing that. I know food costs are going up a little bit now with the current economy. I believe it's a temporary cycle. We're always going to have inflation cycles and non-inflation cycles. So we're just in a little bit of an inflation cycle now. But I think the cost of non-going organic and the health costs in the long term, we've already seen that health costs and costs on medications and drugs and all of these kind of things that come from long-term effects of not eating organic, not eating properly, far outweigh the costs, the initial cost of having organic. Just like the costs of actually becoming sustainable are far less than not becoming sustainable and having irreversible climate change. The last thing we're going to end off with is seasonal eating. So tips for eating with the seasons, what's in season in Canada. You can look this up yourselves as well too, but just to give you a little bit of what's in season, I like to have local and organic. When you have local and organic, it's the perfect combination because local means that it's being harvested at the right time. It doesn't have a lot of food miles, so you also have less climate impact in that way, but you have the best, the freshest food and the most tasty food. So these are different fruits and vegetables that you can have that are in season. As we go into the fall, we're looking in beans, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower. We're looking at garlic, lettuce, mushrooms, onions, peppers. And a lot of these organic stores and these organic co-op, they actually can deliver you a local box. So I always try to choose local box, or when I go in, I go for the local section, and they have things that are in season there. And I usually pick the fruits and vegetables that are in season. It's also more in tune with our bodies when we eat in season in accordance to where we are in the world. It actually is more in line with the natural systems and functions of our body. So when we're eating winter foods in winter, it actually really helps our body deal with the winter environment. When we're eating summery foods in summer, the ones that are in season, it helps our body stay cool, for example, in the summer. And it actually helps our body become much more stable and much more natural within the seasons that we have. So what we can do, just to kind of end off with this, is you can continue to educate yourself. Canadian School of Natural Nutrition is a very good place to look if you're very interested in nutrition. Becoming a holistic nutritionist is something that's incredibly rewarding. not only personally, but the effect that you can have on others, both close to you and far. And making consumer choices and sending signals to the market is one of the greatest things that we can do in a capitalist society. And it's a privilege that we have, which I always say, it's our privilege that we can choose. And in Canada, we can freely choose anything that we want to support. So sending the right signals to the market by buying organic is something that's very powerful. I run a business. Every choice that our clients make, we notice. There's no choice that we don't notice, even its percentages. If they see that organic produce is up 2%, up 3%, they will continue to invest in it. Little margins actually make a huge difference in business. So there's a lot of consumer choices that we can make. Speaking to others about the importance of eating organic, hopefully you've learned a little bit here, and you can go and learn more from the actual organic government website and the organic actual documents from the government that we looked at. Once you look at that, again, very, very accessible, then you'll be able to better understand and have that right in your pocket to speak to people about what we can do and why it's important to eat organic, grow your own food locally, support local organic farmers and co-ops and your local organic stores. And something I haven't mentioned yet that we haven't had a chance and we won't have a chance to get into today, something I've done exclusively this year is I bought organic clothes. Tentree is a great company. Beauty products such as organic soaps, replacing all of your beauty products with organic products. Those are other very, very big impact points that we can make. And then just to end off with new wisdom, the world cannot be fed unless the soil is fed. Regenerative agriculture restores, revitalizes, and reinstates healthy agricultural ecosystems while addressing human, soil, and climate health, along with financial well-being of farmers. The body cannot thrive without a thriving microbiome. Holistic nutrition focuses on developing a thriving microbiome and digestive system, improving every single health outcome in the body. And food choice equals farming patterns equals change. So our choice of food has a single greatest powerful effect, not only on human health, but the health of the planet's biodiversity, freshwater desertification, nitrogen cycle, and climate change. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of Organic Week. I just want to thank Organic Week and Kim for having me again. I hope you learned a lot right now, and I hope you learn a lot from all the other webinars, and hope to see you at Organic Week as well.
Thanks so much, Alexander. It was really so much information and inspiration. You built a lot of context, providing a lot of data and insight into the soil microbiome, the human microbiome. And I'm sure you've created a lot of interest, and I loved all the practical suggestions, because it does come down to practicalities every day. And so the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, where you teach, is, exploring these things. I love the slides on the new wisdom. And I think these are the things that are transforming people's perception and giving them the justification and underpinning to choose organic. So we really encourage the folks who are with us on this webinar to check out organicweek.ca. If you have questions for Alexander, you can send them to us and we will ensure that they get to him, or the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, or if you have questions for us. I really appreciated the fact that you were pointing at the government website, the Canada Organic Regime, which has the Canadian Organic logo. That's a very important logo to check out. There are other certifications, and we do have equivalency arrangements with the USDA, with the United States, which comes through the USDA Organic and other places like the EU and so forth. So sometimes it feels complex. But you've been able to show us, I think, in a very clear manner that what happens in the soil happens to us. So thank you very much. I'm going to use this, and I love it. You are a positive realist. And that's what you said right out of the gate. And I think that that's the thing about organic. Like, we face those brutal facts and we still have unwavering faith that we can move the agenda forward. So that's why we encourage folks to reach out to us during Organic Week and beyond. Here's the info at organicweek.ca, because it's when we're in dialogue that we can move forward. And that's the whole point. Questions, exchange, dialogue, and so forth. So we really appreciate what you brought to us, Alexander. And so yeah, please, folks out there, join us for our other webinars for Organic Week. We in fact have a webinar on Monday, which is you can see that, I'm sure, the recording and so forth, which is called Regenerating Organic. And it's sort of 3 organic experts. And we're speaking about kind of the same kinds of things that Alexander was bringing forth, what's important in the industry. We do work in a market environment and so on and so forth. We have a great webinar by a chef, a celebrity chef, which is all about waste not, want not, and how to make the best use of your organic produce and leftovers. And the organic on a budget tips were very helpful. So please see the other Organic Week webinars. And we thank you very much, Alexander. Is there anything else you'd like to just leave us with?
Well, it was, first of all, it was my pleasure. And second of all, I would just say always be kind to yourself about the choices that you have made, and just embrace and kind to others as well, too, who might not have the same information that you have as well, too. As we go through learning processes and discovery, I just always would say to people, like, approach with maximum empathy. And when we come with maximum empathy, we can affect greater change, because we can understand their points of view and understand, daily life is challenging. So making change is challenging, and reward yourself for every small change that you make, because it all makes a very big difference in the end. So thank you again, Kim. And I'm so happy and so, I'm overjoyed to see that Organic Week is so amazing, well supported, and I want to see it thrive. And I'm excited to see, hopefully, the only food that we can choose from in a few years to come is organic, right? So that's something I always keep focused on the positive future. And again, thank you so much for having me on today.
It's our pleasure. Thanks so much. Happy Organic Week.
Thank you. Happy Organic Week.